So I'm Jean-Sébastien Brock from ICP, Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy, and I'm very pleased to moderate this workshop that will deal with energy efficiency first in electricity tariffs. We have a very nice panel this morning, or lunchtime, let's say, with Zsuzsanna Pato from RAP, Ashos Hofstadter from Acer, Pavel Gillespie and Anna Pidzak from KEPE, and Andrei Zhip from Turn Distribution. I would just make a very quick introduction reminding about the project and the principle, and then you will hear more about the topic of today. So very briefly, Enefirst Plus is a project that is funded by the European program LIFE, started in November 2023. We are a bit more than halfway of the project. The project is about the implementation of the energy efficiency first principle. That's a follow-up of a previous project named Enefirst that was more research oriented. This one is more focused on implementation. It has 8 partners, partly from implementing bodies and partly from the research side. And the overall approach, and that's the main point here, is to see how energy efficiency first can be integrated in current practices of stakeholders. So the approach is not to develop parallel processes or something that would be completely disconnected from the practices of stakeholders, but to see how it matches with current practices. The policy background, I will be super fast because most of you know it. The principle has been established in December 2018 within the governance regulation for the Energy Union. And more recently, in 2023, some articles of the recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive have strengthened the legal basis. And for today, what is especially important is Article 27 that deals with the efficiency in transmission and distribution of electricity and gas, and it highlights the key role of national regulatory authorities, and it also mentions a few things about tariffs, so that's what we will discuss today. In short, very quickly in 2 slides, how we see the energy efficiency first principle. The first point, important point for us is that it is about considering the energy system as a whole, and that's particularly important when we think about the electricity system, and that will be discussed many times during the presentation that are coming, the need to match the supply and the demand, and how we can arrange that the demand the profiles in the demand match well the constraints in the supply side. The second point is to broaden the scope of analysis. And here, let's say, in terms of long-term perspective, it is actually for when we deal with electricity tariffs, it's considering the evolution of the electricity systems and the need for the increasing need for flexibility, for example. In terms of project objectives, so coming now to Enefirst Plus, the main objective is to provide technical support to public authorities and other stakeholders involved in the implementation of the principle. And we do that with developing resources and testing the implementation in pilot cases, and you will hear about that from Zsuzsanna Pato, Pavel Gillespie, and Anna Pidzak this morning. And we will also soon start some learning cycle, and altogether, all the activities we do, including this workshop, is about growing a community of practice about the energy efficiency first principle. Here you have an overview of the first pilot cases that have been done in the first half of the project, and today you will hear more about the ones done by our Polish colleagues. That's it for the introduction. For your calendar, if you are interested in the energy efficiency first principle, you can also join next week on Wednesday the final event of the Regio First project, that is a sister project dealing with the implementation of the energy efficiency first principle in regional energy planning. And I will copy soon in the chat the links where you can find all the information. And about the other pilot cases, last week we had the workshop, if I come back, about the one done by our Italian colleagues of Enea about sustainable energy and climate action plans, and the ones about heating and cooling plants and transmission grid planning and CBA will be done in November and December, and we will soon add the information on the platform. That's it for the introduction. I don't want to take more time. And now I hand it over to Zsuzsanna Pato from RAP, who has developed some nice resources about electricity tariffs. Zsuzsanna, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Sebastian. Welcome everyone to this webinar. I try to share screen. Can you see it?
Yes, not yet full screen, but we see the file.
It's coming. Yeah, just too far. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
So in the framework of the project, we developed a few tools to assist the various pilot cases, the 4 countries involved in this project. And as you see, the main focus in Poland was on tariffs. So we developed 2 tools for consumers on tariffs. And the reason why we believe, why do we need consumer? We believe that there is a need for consumer capacity building on electricity tariffs. And by electricity tariff, I mean the whole integrated tariff, because sometimes there's a confusion also with the terminology. It's very important to understand that with electrification, for the majority of the households in the medium run, the energy bill is going to be the electricity bill. Now, many households, at least in Hungary, we have several bills, gas bill, electricity bill, and for some people, they also have, using coal or oil. But in the future, it's going to be the electricity bill. So how big is the bill is a key question for the affordability. And affordability is an issue across Europe, not only in Central and Eastern Europe, but also in the UK, for example, or in Spain. So if we want to make the energy transition actually happen and be supported by the consumers, we have to be cognizant of the affordability challenge it poses. Of course, if affordability is an issue, electricity prices are really high, that's also a barrier to electrification. To be able to decarbonize the whole economy, first we need to decarbonize the power system, and then as a ripple effect, which with cheaper and cleaner electricity, we can decarbonize the rest of the economy. Not all European consumers are aware of certain things. Some of these issues are common sense in some countries. In other countries, it's not. So many consumers in Europe are not aware of the variety of tariff, which is already out there in Europe in other countries. And also that there is European legislation that requires various tariff offers to be presented to the consumers. They are not aware of the agency they have to mitigate the electricity bill increase. Of course, probably there will be a bill increase, basically due to increasing network cost, but they have a choice and they have an agency to mitigate the increase of their electricity bill. And very importantly, the way they consume has an impact on system cost. So there is a feedback loop on each individual consumer choice on the whole system cost, which is paid by the consumers. So the first tool is so we call it a bill explainer. That's a very brief paper. And the main messages of the paper are as follows. Your bill, and because we approach the consumer, your bill consists of several elements that are designed and governed differently. There are lots of guidance out there on how the bill looks like, how to understand the bill. We were not focusing on that with this paper. So we want to make the consumer understand that the bill is a compound bill. It has several elements. One is the energy component or the electricity, and that is driven by a supply and demand market at the wholesale level. There is of course, it's not directly translated into the retail price. I will talk about that later. There is a grid element or a network element, because of course the electricity needs to be transported to the user. but that's a regulated element. So it's a decision of a national regulator. Very importantly, there are all kinds of taxes and levies, which is very country specific. And here I just give you like a few examples, some of them really extreme. To put the public TV subscription on the electricity bill, that's a kind of extreme. But to be able to facilitate electrification, you know, regulators and governments as well, they have to be aware of how to recover the cost of various policies, for example, renewable support in the past or energy efficiency obligation scheme, to make the electrification easy for the consumers. And the last one is VAT. VAT is not an energy-specific decision. It's more like a more general economic policy decision of the governments, the VAT level, and what kind of rebate possibly electricity can get from VAT. So that's the first message. Very important second message is the way you consume has an impact not only on your own bill, not only on how much you pay, but how much other people pay. So we are in this to some extent together. If you consume more in very tight system conditions, you know, where the demand is really peaking, or there is low renewable generation in that hour or in that 15 minutes, then it will cause system costs. So we will need more generation assets and more grids, more network infrastructure. That drives up the system cost. And as I said, these system costs are most of the time are shared across the users, and to much lower extent it is paid by public budget, which means by taxpayers. The other important message is that there is a huge variation of tariffs that can be imagined and that is already implemented. And this is not a finite number of tariff variations. And here I just highlighted some of key archetypes which are out there. So, of course, in Hungary, I'm in type A. I pay the same a flat tariff regardless of the time of the day. Sometimes you pay a higher price after a certain amount, well, in fact, that's the new regime in Hungary. So after the average consumption, you pay a higher price. But in some countries, the other way around that also works. So some people, for example, who has health conditions and machines they need for their health conditions to use a lot of electricity, after a certain amount, they pay less, which is really counterintuitive. We have the classical time of use when you have predefined time zones within the day and you pay a different price. We have completely dynamic contracts. This is not mainstream, I would say, in Europe or outside Europe, but you can pay 15 minutes, you know, linked to the wholesale price. The F is a special tariff when you have a time of use, but on the top of that, in a few critical hours in the month or in the year, you get a pre-notification before, you pay very, very high amount because that's a very, very tight system condition. I think the French tempo tariff is called critical peak pricing. That's a good example for that. And type G is you pay the same, let's say, regardless of the time of the day, but sometimes you get a rebate. For example, where there is lots of sun, you get a rebate if you consume in those hours. What is important for the consumer to understand is you have a choice. The way you choose has an impact on how much you pay. So these are a few very classical, simple recommendations for the consumer, what he or she can do. So first of all, assuming that there are various tariff offers, you need to figure out what are these offers and pick the one that suits you the best. It sounds very simple. It's not that simple. Of course, there is some regulation at the European level that must be implemented in all member states to have a dedicated website, compare offers, but to make an informed judgment, you must be aware of how you consume, which is not a given. Also, the dedicated websites sometimes are run by the NRA or a public agency. Sometimes they are run by private third-party actors, and sometimes they don't contain all the tariff offers, so there are issues around that. We assume that everyone has a smart meter. Not everyone has a smart meter, so it's very important that you check how and under what condition you can get a smart meter, or a sub-meter linked, for example, just your EV charger. The conditions varies a lot across the member states. Of course, if you buy efficient devices, that helps to reduce the bill. And there are huge differences, we know, on the various electricity consuming devices. And you really have to think through about your own flexibility. You know, what is my current consumption pattern and how can I change that? Flexible uses on a sneaker, or I come and turn on and turn off the thermostat. I don't think that's going to be the future. You know, people don't have the time to deal with that. So we really need to be able to purchase use assets which are automated. So whenever you make a purchase, you really have to make sure that this is capable of automation as much as possible. So that was about the bill explainer. And the second tool I would like to share with you is a map. This is a European map where we try to pool various existing resources on a map to show what's the state of affairs in Europe with regards to smart tariffs. So these are the data we included in the map, and these are the resources. They are all hyperlinked, so you can click on that. You can see that two sources from Acer. One will be discussed more detailed by Ákos in the next presentation, and one is something we've done at REP, surveying smart tariff offers in Europe. So the data that is included in the map is the smart meter rollout. In some countries, it's 2%. In some countries, it's 100%. From an Acer data. The second, which is very important, is one issue is to know how many offers you have in a certain country, but it's very important to see actually how big percentage of the households take that offers, because just the offer being available, it doesn't mean that actually household opt in for that offer. And then the question is, if they don't, why? The second one is specifically on network tariff, and this will be the topic of Ákos, whether or not there is time of use network tariff offered for residential consumers, because the picture is completely different for larger users for sure. And in the REP survey, we try to collect the number of offers we call smart tariffs and services offered for households. And by that, we mean all kinds of opportunities when there is an incentive for the household to change their load profile, so that change the way they consume. And these are the various tariffs and services we included in that map. And they all provide a benefit, financial benefit for the consumers from shifting demand. So there are the classical ones, the static time of use pricing. I show that in the typology, and the dynamic time of use pricing. But there are also other opportunities or tools to incentivize consumer. One is, for example, to include them in a local flexibility market to deal with grid congestions by DSOs, or link the tariff with available renewable generation. So if there is a 15-hour with lots of renewables, then they can have a price rebate. So you can see on the Enefirst website both a link. This is a link to the short paper and also to the tariff map. Thank you very much. Let's stop sharing. If there are questions in the chat, I will reply in the chat.
Or if you want, Zsuzsa, I can share the screen, the map. So if you want to explain briefly the different maps, if there is anything you want to highlight from there.
Well, yeah, you can share. I mean, probably it's better if, people, they just go and check themselves. Basically, these are the data that are included.
Okay, no further explanation. Fine. So you have the link in the chat if you want to visit. You can ask. I forgot to say, but you can ask anytime questions in the chat or in the Q&A panel. And if you don't have a question, we have a question for you. So just wait 1 second. That's this one. So the first question is about the bill explainer that Julia has presented. And maybe, Julia, you can also, while participants are answering this one, you can mention from your point of view who should be the recipient, or let's say who should read this bill explainer.
Well, our experience at RAP is that, of course, consumers in many countries, they are not aware of this. So, because directly consumers, it's very difficult to talk directly to consumers. So consumer organizations in many countries, they are very strong and active. So I think that would be probably the primary audience. But also in our experience, sectoral experts, so those who are dealing with buildings or electric transport, they understand now the impact of pricing, how heat pumps and EVs connect to the grid, but they don't really have a clear idea how the prices are defined, so how the bills are defined. So we get many, many requests from this group of experts to have a better understanding of what exactly the bill is, which sounds very simple, but it's not that simple. Thank you.
No, thanks for that. Thanks for this further explanation. And then the second question is about the other resource, so the map. That should be even quicker to answer that, just to know if from what Julia explained, and if you had the chance to already quickly look at it from the link in the chat, if you think that could be useful for you, for your work or your contacts. That's good to see that overall it seems well appreciated. All right. Okay. So with that, as Julia very well introduced the recent report from Acer, I'm very pleased to welcome to the stage Heiko Schofstetter from Acer. So Acer, that stands for the European Agency for the Cooperation of Energy Regulators. And Heiko will give us more details about this report and other studies done recently by Acer. Heiko, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be here. I was invited to present you briefly our recent report on electricity network tariff methodologies. At Acer, we did a review of the national practices, and we tried to, conclude some major findings and recommendations. It's a very long report, and the time I have is not really allowing me to go into details, but I try to focus on some main messages and hopefully trigger interest to go and check in depth directly in the report if you have any particular interest. I would like to start this presentation that also from Acer side, our evaluation confirms that the annual grid costs are about to increase over time. Using different scenarios, the level of increase could be different. In the high investment scenario, by 2050, the annual grid investment costs could even double, according to our assessment. So it is very important that we try to somehow mitigate this challenge, address it, and of course, a handy solution is to provide proper cost signals to all actors who can influence these costs. And In this presentation, I'm trying to highlight these two tools. One is the revenue setting, where you provide the appropriate incentives to the system operators to build the grid more efficiently and use the existing grid for more efficiently in order to provide more capacity to the market. And the other tool is the electricity network tariff design, which will, of course, provide signals to the network users and will incentivize them to use the grid more efficiently, change their behavior so they can save costs for themselves, but also they can save costs for the overall system. And what we see is that the potential of these two tools are actually increasing these days. One of the reasons, which was also mentioned by Zsuzsa, that there is an increasing share in the final bill for the network tariff component. Electricity prices will hopefully go further down, so their share increase, so also their importance increase. Also, we have more and more flexible resources, more flexible assets, so they are able to react to signals. And with more digitalization and more automation, we believe that this impact will further increase. On this slide, actually, this is what illustrated. There is a modeling from FTI Consulting where they actually show that different tariff regimes being more cost reflective can actually have a greater impact with the level of electric vehicle adoption. And as you see, the most cost reflective, most dynamic tariffs could significantly reduce the aggregate peak load compared to more simple tariff alternatives. We also see that Enefirst understood this challenge and the potential, and most of the member states in Europe are having ongoing tariff reforms or have recently made major changes in the tariff methodologies. We see that this goes towards more cost reflectivity. Certainly, there is still room for improvements. The job is not done. And this is where also Acer is trying to help NRAs by providing some best practices through its tariff report, which is issued every 2 years. On top, the European Commission has recently issued its own recommendation and tariff guidance in line with the Affordable Energy Action Plan. Also, this action plan envisages that if it's necessary, the Commission may put forward also some legislative actions. As of today, there is no strict harmonization for electricity network tariffs in Europe. Certainly, there are some elements like tariff setting principles, generation charges, which have a bit more harmonization. So now I would move to the actual practices and to my main messages. And the first one would be that the NRAs have to be very mindful about shielding certain network users from the costs which are attributed to the network costs, because actually providing exemptions or discounts, while this is not justified by system beneficial impacts, by cost savings, actually would increase the overall bill over time, because if they don't get these signals, they will not react. And there is a very similar problem when it comes to the injection charges. So about half of Europe is not applying a network charge for the generators for injecting. Of course, they still pay connection charges. But if you don't have this systematic network charges for the use of the network, the question comes how the NRA could provide any temporal or spatial signal to these network users. The second message would be that the flat energy-based grid tariffs, which were the very traditional way of recovering the system operator's cost, network tariffs no longer fit for today's power system. There is a recognition of it, and we see changes. So there is a gradual shift towards more power-based charges, which Acer welcomes, but he also warns that the exact tariff design matters. Power-based charges could also be a potential barrier for demand response. So it is very important that they are designed in a cost-reflective way. And this is where we also emphasize that it's very important, especially in those power systems where the system peak is really the cost driver and the big challenge, that you link the cost allocation to this network peak usage and you try to shift network users from using the network during peak. And certainly the way to do it is to apply time of use signals using the network costs different points in times. These time of use signals could be static, and this is what we see in Europe. In most of the countries, about 2/3 of the countries apply time of use signals, static time of use signals, at least in distribution. The variety of these time of use signals is very broad. We have the simple day-night tariffs, but we also have more granular tariffs with shorter time bands and also with seasonal differentiation. We often see that these time of use signals, especially in the very simplistic form, they may fail to capture the system peak. And we also see that where they are applied, in some instances applied only to a very limited group of network users, so there is room to expand it. The other version of the time of use signals is the dynamic tariffs. Here we have only a very few cases in Europe where some elements of the network tariff is more dynamic. And the third message, and kind of the last one for today, is that there is a potential in the locational signals. They are a very useful tool to mitigate congestions. There are certainly also certain drawbacks of these signals or limitations. For example, if the network topology is changing all the time, then also these signals can very quickly changing and may create difficulties in predicting these congestions and where the signals should apply. In a nodal pricing system, these locational signals would be inherited in the price, but we have in Europe for the wholesale prices a zonal system. So within the zone, basically the market is not able to provide these locational signals, and the local markets for system operation services, which would be another market-based tool to provide, let's say, solutions to manage congestions in a cost-efficient way. They are in rather early stages. What we see that applied to avoid congestions in Europe today is the flexible connection agreements. They are ramping up. More and more countries introduce them, or some countries, and some examples I put it in this box, provide the locational signals directly through the network tariffs. They have a component of the network tariff which provides some locational signal, for example, based on the marginal grid losses in each node, or providing higher charges for generation in generation surplus areas and lower charges in demand surplus areas, and the other way around. And before finishing my presentation, I would like to just give one final remark, and this would be that we see that these tariff reforms are sensitive. Of course, it has some redistributional effect, and it's very important that these tariff reforms are not pushed back on the wrong grounds. So we emphasize that regulatory independence in this process is very important. It has to be ensured with all means, and also we ask Enefirst to be very cautious about it and have proper transparency and early stakeholder engagement in these processes to ensure that these reforms are smooth and will not actually create steps back. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to discuss it further in the Q&A.
Thanks a lot, Ákos, for this very interesting presentation. I think the overview already shows that there is a lot to see in this recent report by ACER. So you can find the link in the chat, and as well as the links to the other reports that Ákos has mentioned. you showed that and you insisted that there have been a lot of development in the recent years, but still with quite differences. I mean, a lot of differences according to countries. You mentioned that there is still room for improvement. When you say that, is it due, I mean, the differences among countries, do you see it as the consequences of the local, let's say, national context, maybe some regulators or this having more resources or capacities than others, or do you see some specific barriers that still prevent changes in the direction that you presented?
Yes, thank you very much. It's very important to emphasize, and we do it in our report, that so the recommendations we are making, even if we try to make them as a no regret recommendation, still the application may depend on the local power system context. So it could be possible that different challenges in the local power system could require different solutions. We also had, for example, experience by NRAs that they introduced time of use signals, but it had a very small share in the final bill. And also the signals did not provide strong incentives to change behaviors. It was much stronger, the signal which came from the market price, from the market. And you know, these are all these small nuances which has to be considered when setting the tariff methodologies. The tariff methodology setting has to satisfy multiple objectives, and cost reflectivity is only one of them. There is also tariff setting principle as simplicity, predictability, sustainability, non-discrimination. So these all have to be considered by the NRA, and they have to find this in balance. And the NRAs may find this balance differently depending on the national context. That's one thing. And the second thing is, of course, the resources, right? So like not only in terms of human resources and the NRA's abilities, but also whether these users are equipped with smart meters or not, because we can have dynamic tariffs, but if there are no meters able to capture the network use with sufficiently high granularity, or actually we don't have assets in the households, heat pumps, electric vehicles, who would be able to react, then certainly the result, the impact of these charges could be different. So in this FDI consultancy study, which I showed, I think this is very nicely presented, and also their proposal was kind of going gradually, step by step. They see room for a more gradual build up of network tariffs to the envisaged best regime at the end. I hope I replied.
No, yes, that's a very, very interesting answer, and that also nicely links with one of the exchanges that you can see in the chat between Nives and Shuja about also the differences we may see among consumers, and especially the difficulty for vulnerable consumers to grasp the flexibility potential. And there is a link to the report prepared by RAP about flexibility that links very well with the end of your answer. Before we go to the next presentation, a last question that comes from the chat. I don't know if it's Fulia Ilbe or Ilbe Fulia, sorry for the bad pronunciation of the name of the participant. And here's the question. What are the practical steps and recommendations for regulatory independence, given the fact that more collaboration is needed to achieve these ambitious reform goals that you presented?
Yes, so the fact is that the European Union legislation already requires the independence of national regulatory authorities, and this also concerns tariff setting. That's in the hand of the NRAs. Now, certainly there are always a bit of a conflict between the practice and the theory. There is some thin lines what is in the legislation and what is left completely to the NRA. But in this regard, there were some recent court cases in 2021. European Court of Justice ruled and provided a decision for example, in case of Germany, that they cannot set tariff methodologies in ordinances, in government ordinances, or ministry ordinances, but it has to be the NRA's responsibility. We also see that in some other countries, which some years ago in our reports were still highlighted as having limited NRA responsibility for tariff setting and having more responsibility by, for example, DSOs or TSOs, we see that there is a bit of a change. NRAs are gaining more and more powers. They control more of these tariff settings. So what we see is that it's more the NRA who now sets and designs the tariff methodologies, and there are maybe a bit less cases where the NRA only approves these tariff methodologies. So that's just to give a bit of a practical explanation, like what I mean by regulatory independence and how to enhance it. So in the ACE recommendation, it was very clear that the NRAs should, as a strict minimum, approve. But we actually promoted that NRAs sets and designs. And of course, the collaboration is extremely important. That was also my final slide. So it is early engagement. It really means that maybe several years in advance of a tariff report, you have a very inclusive public consultation. Also for here, we have several recommendations and practices in Europe. Yeah, so that's so the NRA, being in the driving seat, should consult all the stakeholders, including system operators, network users, and so on.
No, thanks for your answer. And what I take from that, it's this regulatory independence is also probably connected to legal aspects. You mentioned the Court of Justice in Germany, and okay, clarification maybe also on who should do what and the legal basis for that. We now go from the view of the regulator to the views of the consumers, and we will learn from this, from the pilot case that our Polish colleagues have done. So I'm happy to welcome to the stage Paweł Glewski and Anna Piljak from the Polish Energy Conservation Agency. Paweł and Anna, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Jean-Sébastien. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paweł Glewski, and with me is Anna Piljak. We are both representing Krajowa Agencja Promowania Energii. For many of you, it's familiar just in short as KAPA. Today, we wanted to present the results of the pilot case that we have elaborated over the last couple of months, which was focusing on the social economic aspects of small end users, and these were primary households, regarding their participation in demand response programs, with a strong emphasis on the energy efficiency first principle and how it can be included in the overall picture of their participation in this kind of the programs. Our Polish pilot case was undertaking in-depth examination of the socio-economic factors that influence the participation of small end users in DSR programs. And our motivation for this investigation was that we recognize that it wasn't until recently that the conditions for small end users' participation in that kind of the programs have not been well understood. And we acknowledge that it was largely due to limited opportunities for participation and also a lack of systematic research into their perspectives. And our goal was to fill in this gap and to provide a better and more comprehensive understanding of their needs and some sort of the barriers that they face when kind of struggling with the DSR participation. The core of our pilot case study consisted of two surveys that we have conducted. The biggest one one was related to the households, and it was conducted among approximately 400 small electricity consumers. So these were households, including both prosumers and non-prosumers, and it assessed their knowledge, attitudes, also willingness to participate in DSR. And we also aimed to identify key factors influencing their engagement, such as awareness, preferences, and also their perceived barriers. So in the end, we collected 400 responses. However, we have contacted more people, but in the meantime, we performed some quality check on the collected answers, and that way we could only keep these high quality responses where all the data were filled in properly, and that helped us to have this bigger picture of the whole household situation. Secondly, we performed a survey which was dedicated to the energy market representatives, and this survey collected responses from key stakeholders such as DSOs, DSR aggregators, and energy suppliers. Questions covered the level of interest in implementing, broadly speaking, flexibility services, actions taken, the scope of services they offered, as well as perceived barriers to market development, such as regulatory gaps or insufficient customer awareness. And I think that right now is also the time for the question.
You should see it now, so you can tell us how familiar you are with demand response, demand-side response, sorry.
So we are really eager to hear how much are you familiar with DSR, and very soon I will show what were the outcomes of our survey.
Do you see the results from on your side, Pavel?
Yes, I do.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think we have more than half of the participants that have answered, so you can continue.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So to show up you the results of our result. So here we have the result regarding the awareness on DSR in the surveyed population. So on the first figure, we can see the overall level of knowledge regarding the DSR. And one of the key findings that we can see here is that DSR awareness is still low across the general population, representing a major hurdle to wider participation. And to the right, on the figure number 2, we can see a division of these answers into prosumers and non-prosumers. And one of the interesting things that we can observe here is that prosumers do not exhibit significantly higher knowledge of DSR compared to non-prosumers, which was quite surprising to us, because we have expected that prosumers will be more educated in that field, which actually was not confirmed in the survey. And moving to the next slide, so here we have some brief of the results, which are more explained in details in the final report. So one of the things we've investigated was the knowledge of DSR as a function of the reported income, and somehow when analyzing this knowledge by income, we can observe that higher reported income correlates with higher DSR awareness. So this might indicate that the higher income group are more likely to, or better positioned to invest in smart technologies that will enable them to profit from DSR. And to the right on the figure 4, we see knowledge of DSR as a function of annual energy consumption. And what we can see is that higher annual energy consumption also appears linked to higher DSR awareness. So customers with higher usage might be more motivated to seek ways to reduce bills, which leads to greater interest in solutions like DSR. And then moving to the slide number 6, we see robust investigation of the barriers and reluctance to participate in DSR programs. So this chart illustrates the reasons given by respondents who are not participating in DSR. And to briefly sum this up, some key aspects that were emphasized by the respondents include primarily low trust and understanding. So significant barriers are likely related to lack of trust in new technologies and providers, and also some concerns about the complexity of the program. Second group was the fear of loss of comfort. So small users indicated that they could be often put off by the prospect of having to change their daily habits or a loss of personal comfort. And finally, the last element was insufficient financial benefits. So some users may perceive that the offered financial benefits are too small compared to the required effort and commitment they have to perform. And one more thing to share was regarding the preferences for DSR participation. So according to the figure 6, we can see that in the bigger picture, it indicates that the majority of the responders prefers a direct reduction of their electricity bill, since this form is the simplest, most tangible, and easiest to understand. And comparing prosumers and non-prosumers, which we can see on the figure number 7, we can see that prosumers are slightly more open to advanced forms of settlement, such as, for example, cash bonus. So their knowledge and engagement with the energy market make them more receptive to complex mechanisms. Also, one other thing that we can see is that there is a clear trend where lower income individuals strongly prefer bill reduction, highlighting the need for immediate and direct financial savings. So that's what we can see on the figure number 8, while to the right in the figure number 9, we can constatate that energy consumption does not show a strong division. So the preferences for bill reduction remains dominant across all consumption levels. And now I give the floor to my colleague, Hannah.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Paweł, for the introduction. And now I will tell about our second survey. So our second survey, like Paweł said earlier, was aimed at representatives of the energy market. And its main purpose was to find out our respondents' opinions on the potential for introducing DSR programs or flexibility services among smart end users in Poland. And our respondents included representatives of DSOs, DSR aggregators, and energy suppliers. Okay, Paweł, could you move on to the next slide? Thank you. And now I think you should see a mini survey about your opinions on the popularization of dynamic tariffs.
Yeah, that's this one. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so maybe we will see the results later. But we ask our respondents about first about the level of interest in this topic and the actions that they have taken. And the first thing is that all respondents expressed interest in introducing such DSR programs or flexibility services among households. But they also expressed concerns about technical issues and the difficulties of on introducing such service among households. And in terms of taking actions, DSOs, for example, mentioned such activities as the introduction of the dynamic distribution tariff and pilot program for flexibility services, but among medium voltage network consumers. Of course, DSR aggregators offer such services, but only for large users, and do not see much potential among households. So there is a clear interest in flexibility, but implementation among small end users is very limited and difficult to organize due to the dispersion of households. So if we can see results from this mini survey, we can see some of you have hope for popularization of tariff of dynamic tariffs. So it's great. Okay, thank you, Pavel. So we also ask them about the risk of the network overload because of the mass connection of heat pumps and EV chargers among prosumers, but with net metering, because these prosumers do not have to actively participate in the energy market like prosumers with net billing. And DSOs confirmed there is a risk of network overload, but the problem lies in the general imbalance between energy production and consumption on the market, rather than in the prosumer billing model. And solutions to this problem proposed by DSOs are the need to manage demand and increase flexibility as a key. Secondly, dynamic and zonal tariffs to support the desired consumption profiles are the best way to increase the flexibility among small end users. But there is a need for digitalization and modernization of the network. And it is especially important to educate consumers about possibilities and benefits of flexibility, because at the moment households and small end users rarely decide to be flexible in their consumption, for example, for the reason mentioned in previous presentation. Okay, so Pavel, you may continue.
Thanks a lot, Hannah, for the insights on the second survey. So to briefly sum up what we have achieved with both of the surveys. So in the end, we work on some evolutionary model that could be used for DSR cooperation. So we have discussed this sort of model with different stakeholders. And basically, we propose a three-phase evolutionary model that could help to develop DSR involvement for small end users. So Here you see some details of this. Basically, for the first 3 years, we see this in a phase 1 as some foundational engagement where the core goal is to overcome consumer inertia and build the awareness. Also, the mechanism of focus should be on simple, voluntary initiative-based programs with no type of the penalties. Then moving to the phase 2, years 3 to 7, is going to be market liberalization and automation. Then the goal is open competition and unlocking deeper flexibility. And the focus would shift to automated control of small devices like EVs and HVs. And finally, year 7 plus, that's future revision, phase 3. So the goal is a fully integrated local energy market. The mechanism focuses on prosumers actively trading energy and flexibility peer-to-peer. And based on our analysis, we have also prepared some strategic recommendations by most important actors on the field. So here is just a very short brief. So we have prepared some recommendations for government and for the National Regulatory Office in terms of the energy, some recommendations for DSOs and TSO, and also for the aggregators and retailers. So in the end, we want them to benefit from our insights, and this is ready to be shared with them. Thanks a lot for your attention. It's pretty much everything from our side. We hope it was available. I just kindly inform you that there's going to be a pilot case fact sheet on this pilot case ready for you on the website of the project, and once it's going to be there, we'll let you know so you can have a more detailed look on the outcomes of the pilot case. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Pavel and Anna. There has been that's more a comment or a suggestion in the chat from Sam Thomas from RAP, who is asking if the sample size would make it possible to analyze responses by income and consumption combined. It means within each income group, awareness by consumption level. I don't know if that's something that you investigated or that's something that you would see statistically feasible.
Yeah, so the sample size is always the issue. So we I will have to look whether we did investigate that or not. I can't remember because we've done quite a lot of site analysis on that. So I could come back with a more precise response on that.
Sure, and you will have opportunities to exchange with Sam soon, so that's not an issue. In the meantime, if you have not seen it in the chat, Akos has shared another report from SEER about coming back to the question on regulatory independence. So if you are interested in that, you can also check this link in the chat. So thanks a lot, Pavel and Anna. We may come back to you at the end during the open discussion. We have heard a lot in the previous presentation about the role of DSOs and what they are or they are not doing. So I'm very happy now to welcome to the stage Andrzej Szyp, who will present concrete actions that one of the Polish DSO, the Tariffs distribution, is doing. And the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation. Do you see the slides? Do you hear me well?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. We are not the part of the project, but we are connected somehow as a stakeholder group for this action, and we are very happy to be there. My name is Andrzej Szyp. I lead Energy Transition and Regulatory Affairs Department for Polish DSO Tauron Distribution. I strongly support the vision where active consumer participation is a key for for both energy efficiency and for increasing the system flexibility and whole energy transition process. I'm happy to share some of our experiences with new tariff solution we have implemented. First, to put you in the picture, some facts about our company. We operate the grid on south of Poland. Now we have almost 6 million customers connected to our grid. Our company, as well as other DSOs, are currently within the process of rolling out smart meters in Poland. We have reached more than 34% of penetration of such meters so far. We are reaching 100%. Simultaneously, we have a lot of prosumers with a lot of PV or rooftop PV installation. In our company is 450,000 of such installation. Only less than 5% are equipped with battery storage solutions. So we've got a lot of challenges regarding voltage management, voltage control, especially in sunny Sundays and Saturday when the demand is not really high, and this type of resources are feeding the electricity to the grid. The scale of whole country is over 13 gigawatts of power from this type of installation, so it's really significant. It's both for DSOs and for also for our TSO, and it has significant impact on the system. When it comes to flexibility or demand side flexibility, we see this in 4 dimensions. We see, of course, network tariffs as one important tool that can help us to reduce consumption during peak hours, but also can stimulate the shifting the consumption for the time periods when the demand is lower, or where the renewables or the electricity from renewables is available. So this is first point. The second is a rule-based approach. So we see that there's a need of some kind of codes and or law mechanisms or components to stimulate specific behavior of the users. We have such solutions in Germany and France so far. We are not really dealing with this in Poland, but I think this would be also needed in some longer perspective. We are also preparing for market-based procurements of local services or flexibility services. So this is the type where in certain location DSOs will be empowered to buy some services of changing the behavior of the customer, decreasing consumption, or decreasing generation, for example. We are waiting for the regulation ecosystem to be in place in Poland. We are waiting for network code on demand response, which is going to be implemented early next year. But there will be more actions on local, national side to bring it alive. And finally, we have fourth aspect is flexible connection agreement. So some kind of non-firm connection agreement in case where the capacity is not really available for consumer or generation. And this will be some kind of win-win solution that we will be able to give the customer the connection, but there will be more strictly limited. There will be some limitations or control of generation at certain times, and it will be agreed with both sides. Regulatory aspect of this kind of solution are currently implemented, I think, in our Polish Energy Act. So we are looking to see this final solution early next year also. This year we have introduced 2 novel tariff solutions for households. The first one is called G14 Dynamic, but the dynamic aspect is not really related to the prices, but in this aspect is related to time of use, because we have time of use tariff for many years in Poland, but I think 90% of households using flat tariff, one zonal tariff. So we are looking for some ways to motivate to switch to other tariff models, and this is one aspect. This works like this is connected with our transmission system operators, Polskie Sieci Elektroenergetyczne. TSO probably is publishing the forecast for the next day, where they show what are the situation of the energy system, what will be the situation of energy system in every hour of the day. So we will have some kind of map that, as you can see, with green, light green, yellow, and red. And the colors reflect the situation of the system, so availability of green energy or level of consumption, generation. And we have some constraints and we have some green hours. So this concept of this tariff means that we give very little variable network fee components for the green periods. And we increase it for the red and orange one. So we say to the customer, okay, if you would like to be environmental or green or maybe environmental friendly, you can follow this suggestion or recommendation and enhance your consumption in times when electricity from renewables is available in the system. So this is first solution. The other is G14S. This is also the solution based for more active customers that can switch their consumption in the matter of time. Mostly for prosumers equipped with PV installation or storage, and the time zones are connected with typical profiles of household of the consumption of household with PV. So we try to differentiate the time zone for weekends, for sunny weekends, for example, or for sunny weekday, or for weekdays. So again, we try to make customer consume energy where it's really available, and to do it on local way. So this is the other tariff solution. To help the customers to choose the tariff that best suits their needs, we do some actions. The primary way is it's very simple, but so it's the tool we published on our website. By setting certain assumption, the customer can get simplified calculation showing what will be the bill for distribution service across different tariff groups. So they assess that they will have apartment, they will have photovoltaic or no. They put some numbers regarding power consumption. They might also add some fees for electricity from their supplier, and they will get very simple statistical based quantity of the money. That's something that the customer care of. So they can assess which tariff group would be best for them. The more advanced one, the second solution is connected with our app called Licznik, which is e-meter. So all customers equipped with smart meters have possibility to download and to use this app. This is for free for them. They can access the current meter reading. They can monitor, analyze their energy consumption, energy generation. They can do a lot of things connected with savings, or they can set some goals and bring some notification. And one feature also is connected with tariff comparison, so they can simulate what would be the division of their whole day consumption, for example, in different tariff groups. So it is the main benefit is that it is based on holistic historic consumption data, so they can assess which type of tariffs suits their best. For example, they can, and on the screen you can see what will be the division for this 4 time zones of tariff G14D, this dynamic one connected with TSO signal. To summarize, despite relatively low uptake of the new tariffs, because frankly speaking, these are not very popular solutions. At the moment, we are convinced that the continuation of development, the new tariffs, particularly through some kind of cost reflective and localization aspect, will be an important factor in driving energy efficiency and whole energy transition process. And it will be also important tool for DSOs. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andrzej. So if the figure you show on this last slide of the 360,000 active users, that's for only the last solution you showed, or that's for all the solutions you presented in the 2 last slides?
So this solution. These are the active users of this application. So of this.
Okay, app. For the app.
Only for the app. But and this solution can be used without any connection to our DSO. So you can just you can stimulate yourself in this tool, and you will get the answer or the recommendation.
So it makes about 6% of the the 6 million customers you have, if I make the calculation more or less.
Yeah, they can. But even they will be not equipped with smart meters. So this is some kind of calculation.
But then you have more customers that can help with the network if we consider those options you shown earlier.
Yes.
So overall, do you think that currently you have already high enough share of customers that can react to the signals either from the tariff or the other signals you provide them to have an impact on the network, or that's still too low?
Yeah, this is still too low. It's far too low, but we have to start with something. So we try to pilot this type of solution and see how the impact will be.
Okay, so maybe that answered the first question in the chat from Cédric Genret, who is a colleague from the Service Industriel de Genève in Switzerland, so the Geneva utility, and he's asking, do you have results on sufficiency gains allowed by dynamic tariffs? So yeah, maybe if the number of participants is low, you might not have yet data on that.
Yeah, we don't have also much dynamic tariff from the supplier side in Poland. So because the energy suppliers also introduced the dynamic tariff, but the uptake is not really significant for the time being.
And then the second question from Sam Thomas is making the connection with energy efficiency policy measures. So if it can help to contribute to the demand side flexibility. So he's asking if you see any value in focusing energy efficiency policy measures on reducing peak demand and or in areas that are grid constrained. Or will be constrained in the future.
I think more important about the scale will be the local services I mean, flexibility services from bigger customers or bigger generators. But we are also the Energy Efficiency Directive is under implementation in Polish Energy Act. We have currently the consultation phase. So after this will be implemented in Polish legal system, there will be some actions from NRA side also that would try to develop how does the energy efficiency first rule should be implemented in whole tariff system for DSOs also. So this will be the discussion, I think, next year.
Okay. And maybe on that, I can complement with some French experience, because maybe that's to say that in some of the areas where there are already grid constraints and that the customers are quite aware of that because they have seen risk on their supply from time to time and they have received alerts, let's say, from the system operators or the electricity suppliers. They have put in place very simple information system working with text messages. For example, now there is an application, I think, but it started really with simple text messages on a voluntary basis, and it helped quite significantly. I don't remember exactly, but maybe something like 5% of the peak load were reduced, something like that. And maybe it was due to the awareness of the customers that, okay, if they don't react to the alerts they receive, then they will need to pay more because there will need to be reinforcement, or maybe also they were sensitive to the project of reinforcement locally. Maybe they opposed to the construction of new lines, etc., which make that also probably there is a matter of how sensitive the customer are to this issue, not only in terms of bills, but also in terms of other aspects that could be a possible breakouts or environmental issues if new grid projects are developed.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have similar experience in.
We are also part of Eclipse project. We have logotype at the left side of the slide, and then the link to the project. This is the Digital Europe founded projects that we have similar use case for this. You explained before minutes. So testing that if the signals could really be efficient, and what kind of signals to what kind of customer. So this is also something that we are working on.
Okay, and maybe to conclude the workshop and have some space for an open discussion with all speakers. There have been earlier in the chat an exchange about the case of vulnerable customers, which may not have the same opportunities, let's say, that others to take part in a flexibility scheme or in tariff, in dynamic tariffs, etc. Zsuzsa, you already answered about that, sharing the report prepared by app on this topic. But let's say maybe if we go in the other way around, so asking first to Andrews and Akos what you think about that, if that's a topic that you have dealt with also already to think about, I don't know, specific provisions for vulnerable customers on that. I don't know, Andrei or Akos, if you want to react on that.
I can go first. Yes, so they are special in the sense that they are both injecting into the network and they're also withdrawing from the grid. What we always emphasize is that, both network uses should be taken into account. And basically, when you set the network charges, in order to avoid any double charging, you have to make sure that if there is any cost offsetting, this is also considered. Both injection and withdrawal, depending on the time, could have also system beneficial impact. So that's about like prosumers in general. And then there is another topic, which is, I think, very related, is this renewable energy communities and citizen energy communities, where we also see that if it is assumed that the energy is locally produced and consumed, which certainly provides some relief for the upper voltage levels, then it may make sense for an NRA to consider that certain costs are not borne by these energy community users. For example, we had a case in Portugal where it was proved that the upper voltage level is not used. Then basically they exempted these network users, or they made them pay for those costs which incurred in upper voltage levels. So these are the two issues which comes to my mind, but happy to flag or like reflect on other aspects if there is something more specific question.
No, all clear. Andre, on your side, is it a topic that's around you have dealt with or not yet?
Not yet. As I said, the flexibility, local services are strictly related to the localization aspect, and this will be also I think, much more efficient way to deal with these solutions. But this energy community aspect also are available in Poland. We have already implemented some regulations that says that the more electricity this community consumes as whole and generates, so the less balance, the higher balance that they reach, they have possibility to lower the fees for distribution also. So this could be also some good direction.
Okay. I don't know, Zsuzsa, Pavel, or Anna, if you want to complement on that. Otherwise, we may just conclude with a final word from each of you. And maybe I will ask you, we have seen from all your presentation that we are still in a phase where we need to investigate, to experiment, to test. You mentioned the importance to also take into account the national or local context, the different constraints that may appear locally. Andre, you mentioned that okay, you need to start from somewhere. We develop services, we see there is a reaction from the customers, how the take-up is and how it will grow. So maybe the last question would be, do you see any driver or game changer that could accelerate these changes or this transition to the new, let's say, flexible electricity system that you are calling for in your presentations? I don't know who want to start.
I start. So changing the way you pay for the electricity as a consumer, especially if you've done in a very simple way with a flat tariff for decades and decades, it's not an easy shift. So it's one thing what is good for the system, but of course the consumers need to be open to adapt. Changing, let's say, electricity tariff design, the compounded tariff design brings winners and losers. We have to be honest about that. Those who have high flexibility potential, especially if it's automated, those are the ones who will be on the winning side, but there are losers. But there are ways to ease the shift, and I would like to quote an example from California, so outside Europe, where they changed the default regime from a flat rate to a time of use for 90% of the users in California. And there were two ways they tried to ease the shift. One was that they introduced shadow bills. So you could see, very similar to the Tariffs app. So you could see how much you would pay under the various schemes. And the other one, because it was not an opt-in regime, it was a mandatory change for consumers. Then if they lost, it means they had to pay more. Then the difference has been compensated for 1 year or 2 years. So that eased a bit the shift and maybe give some time for them to improve their flexibility potential. Thank you.
No, thanks, Zsuzsa. And that's also always interesting to hear from outside Europe as well. If we follow the order of presentation, then we go to Akos and your final word.
which was mentioned on the slide.
The
So
slide.
I think the growing potential is there. Clearly, the digitalization, the automation will be a game changer. We have contacts also with some technology providers. They say they are ready. They are just waiting for the regulators. Regulators will say that, well, we have to go steadily and surely to go into no regrets. So I think the puzzles will find their place, but they are already there. We just have to be put together. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a usual message, that the regulator are cautious and they want to protect the consumers, which is indeed one of their main mission. Pavel and Anna?
So from us, it would be a bit more focus on the educational issues that will help households and small end users to better understand complex technical issues like DSR, so they will be not scared about its complexity, and somehow this supportive system to help them along the way to enter something they don't know without this fear that it's something ugly and that might lead to some sort of complication.
Yeah, great. Anna, you want to complement?
Okay, so I think we should focus on informing consumers about the possibilities and benefits of dynamic tariffs, and I think also we should create some tools and teach the consumers how to use these tools that would help them be more flexible.
Andrew, for the final word, it's on you.
I think the electricity and distribution bill can be lowered, but it will require some actions and effort on the consumer side. So we have to bring some optimal solutions to make it happen.
Yeah, no, I hear from all your final words that we need both sides. So from the regulator, the DSO, and customers, all to get engaged in this transition for things to happen. And hopefully, as Akos said, the pieces of the puzzles are there, and it will move progressively. So I take a lot of positive messages from your presentation today. So that's very good. I think with that, I thank you very much for your presentation, for your time. Also, I thank the participants for their comments and their suggestions in the chat. We will inform you when the proceedings, including the presentation files and the recordings, are available, and we stay in touch for further topics on energy efficiency first. Thanks a lot, and have a nice day.